Hello, beautiful friends. We are coming up on the infamous Scorpio total lunar eclipse happening on May 15th into the 16th. And I do think that this eclipse has a bit of a reputation that precedes it. It's got a bit of this fanfare, this parade going down the street with a lot of noise to it. And for that reason, I really want to be very clear in today's chat about how to work with this energy, why it's actually one of the most loving, caring transits that we have. And this eclipse can be really, really useful in getting more deeply in touch with ourselves and getting curious about ourselves and the way that we are growing and changing. This is an eclipse that I'm actually really, really excited about, and one that I think can be very empowering, extremely nurturing, and help us to understand the archetype of Scorpio, I think, in a truer, clearer light. So that's exactly what we are going to get into today, because I think this is a really, really important and powerful and healing topic. This is our second eclipse of this particular eclipse season. We just had the partial solar eclipse in Taurus on April 30th, and this is 2 weeks later on May 15th into the 16th. And this is a total lunar eclipse, so I think a lot of the Americas are going to get an amazing show. I'm a little too far north here in Europe for much of a lunar show this time of year, sadly. But for those of you, this is a total lunar eclipse, so it will be quite the spectacle. And right now, because of the nodes of the moon reflect where the eclipses are happening, the south node is currently with Taurus. So we're doing some shadow work here. We are doing some sitting with parts of ourselves that maybe we brush under the rug or ignore or don't want to spend too much time with, which I think is part of the reason why sometimes this can freak people out. And this is where we often get the very dramatic Instagram posts, the very dramatic interpretations of these energies, because depending on who you're listening to or connecting with, their level of comfort with being with different aspects of themselves will be reflected in the way that they relate to Scorpio energy. And that is genuinely not to be hard on anybody, because it can feel very intimidating initially, and we all have different things that intimidate us in our own healing journeys and our own remembering journeys. So there's no judgment there, but Scorpio does tend to be a bit of a mirror where, depending on how comfortable you are with exploring and getting curious about parts of yourself, it will affect the way that you connect with this energy. And that is why I want to empower us all to have a really beautiful total lunar eclipse. So we're going to have the sun over in Taurus at 25 degrees of Taurus. It's going to be opposing the moon at 25 degrees of Scorpio. At its heart, with an eclipse like this, a total lunar eclipse in Scorpio, this is going to be transformation upon transformation. This is going to be about letting go of the tightness, the rigidness that we may hold around how we are changing shape. But one of the key words that I think really resonates for me when I think about Scorpio energy is curiosity. Scorpio is very deeply tied to taboo topics. It's also tied to things like psychology and being curious about the subconscious and the unconscious. And because of that, this is a very curious, capable energy at giving us a chance to be with our whole selves. And that's exactly what I feel like a total lunar eclipse in this sign is about. It's about letting ourselves be whole and seen. In fact, what's really interesting about this total lunar eclipse is it is squaring Saturn in Aquarius. And once again, a lot of times Saturn gets co-opted into this drama, into the abusive parent drama. Scorpio gets co-opted into it, and all this stuff starts to happen. But for me, Saturn is about what is and this square is about what is longing for us to give it one moment of our grace and attention. It's the thing that is longing for us to be expressed in the world, the part of us that is longing to be expressed within ourselves first and foremost, and then therefore in the world. It's the part of ourselves that feels unlovable, unworthy, afraid, nervous, but that also has some of the best wisdom, the best creativity, and the best ideas. Once we allow ourselves to welcome it and see it and embrace it, It therefore transforms into what it is longing to be, which is action and creativity and play and connection. And that is what that square is challenging us to do, is to just sit with all the parts of ourselves and the parts of ourselves, the ideas, the dreams that are longing for expression in life. And depending on how much you've been looking into that in yourself, this eclipse will be more or less comfortable, right? Not necessarily more or less scary or more or less destructive or anything like that. But it will be just a matter of we're each going to experience this differently, and we're each going to have different comfort levels on what is asking to be looked at and expressed, right? This total lunar eclipse is also going to be trining Mars and Neptune over in Pisces. And this is about your soul song, because whenever Pisces energy is getting activated, this is going to be about the non-physical. This is going to be about some deeper truth that has nothing to do with the nitty-gritty details of being here, doing your day-to-day routine, but about something deep and true that is calling to you. So every single one of these placements are about deep honesty and deep connection to what it is that is deeply, deeply, deeply true, stripping back to the bare basics. With all of this in mind, everything that's just happening. Oh, and I just wanted to mention, this is happening with Jupiter newly in Aries. So we're having a totally new 12-year cycle with Jupiter just beginning during this eclipse. It is also going to be Mercury retrograde during this eclipse. And one of the keynotes about this Mercury retrograde that is happening is this is about listening. More than it is about writing stories, more than it is about communicating or getting clear on this or that, it's about hearing. And so most of this Scorpio total lunar eclipse is going to be about listening deeply, kindly, curiously, openly about how we are changing and transforming. And this is the most beautiful healing work you can possibly do. And I will just say that again and again. This is so, so supportive and deep, and I love it. Because here's the thing. Here's the keynote that came out with all of this in mind. Is there a version of you that's a little intimidating, that wants to come out? It wants to play. It wants to explore. It wants to create. But it may feel like you just want to keep it on a back shelf, because if you open that door, you don't know what's going to change in your life. You don't know what's going to happen. This lunar eclipse is asking you to just entertain the notion that this version of you that's longing to shine brightly and light up rooms, Scorpio energy is so much about the magnetic beauty of being really, really present and observant. This is so much about you getting comfortable with the fact there may be a version of that you that wants expression. This is going to be a time to notice this. But even more importantly to me than that aspect of this total lunar eclipse is that there's the bones of something calling to us deep inside. That deep listening, just sitting still and listening. Sometimes there's this deep calling. It can start to almost feel like a ghost or a phantom or a ghoul or a monster that we need to run away for. We need to shove it back in the closet under the bed and not see it. But I think one of the coolest things about working with Scorpio energy and something like this total lunar eclipse is that when you open the door to that perceived ghoul, ghost, goblin, this is one of the most adorable, lovable parts of ourselves. This is the part of ourselves that it reminds me of like a puppy or a really cute golden retriever or an adorable, snuggly, fluffy cat or whatever your fancy may be. It wants to light up and play and be loved. So this is our chance to do that. Rather than trying to shove away and detach from parts of ourselves that we think are these ghouls and these ghosts and these monsters and these haunted houses. These are parts of ourselves that are adorable and loving and playful and curious. And when we are willing to listen in and get curious about them and hold them, we transform our relationships with ourselves and with our shadows. And it's no longer this kind of light, dark war that I think sometimes the spiritual world kind of gets into. It's much more about this dynamic conversation and this connectivity between these parts of ourselves and the way that they work together. So this is really, really beautiful energy for being okay with who you are. And I mean, yeah. Maybe that is a little disruptive because You're not going to put on all the makeup all the time, or like do things for other people even when it's totally crossing a boundary for you. It may be that you will be uncomfortable because you'll suddenly be sharing your art, or asking for help in a place that you normally want to hide that you need help. Whatever it is, yeah, it may change some pieces around. But it's because it's your soul song that deserves some attention. Okay, 3 cards wanted to come out all in a row. Okay, it is, this Hierophant card in the middle is a card of Taurus season, so makes a little bit of sense. Okay, so, these are cards that speak of a process at work. We have 5 of Cups, Hierophant, 2 of Pentacles. And what I will say about something like an eclipse season is this is a time that is meant to be between two worlds. And both the 5 of Cups and the 2 of Pentacles are cards that have to do with being between 2 worlds, 2 shores, 2 ways of doing things, 2 roads. And I think a lot of us are probably going to get a lot more clarity on what has transpired during this Taurus season when we get into Gemini season and the Gemini new moon. So no rush on figuring this out before this eclipse, during this eclipse, or directly after. Just don't worry about that. You're good. But this is a time where we are modulating between one version of the world and another, one way of connecting to ourselves and another. 5 of Cups for me is one of my favorite energies. For me, this encapsulates the bittersweetness of life, which is there are certain things that go away, that cannot be reclaimed, that have their moment in the sun. And there are things that we must grieve and release and honor. And they're also the promise of so much fun and play. And these 2 things are so deeply linked. And this is about standing between those 2 worlds. This is a really great time to process emotion. And once again, depending on your comfort level with processing emotion, I am personally somebody who is always, I'm over there, feeling my feelings, crying, expressing, exploring, journaling. I do a lot of processing of this stuff, and I try to keep on top of it. Depending on your comfort level with that, this could be an eclipse that really, really makes sense to you and you flow with, or that you feel a little more intimidated by, but that doesn't mean that it needs to hurt. 5 of Cups, it's about release. It's about honoring and releasing, and also knowing it's okay to be both grieving and enjoying curiosity. We have the Hierophant. And this is the Taurus card, so it's really interesting for me because it reflects that this is the second eclipse in this eclipse season, and that this is South Node work we're doing with Scorpio right now, which is about what we're releasing. And the Hierophant for me is a reminder of what we're also going toward. And to stay focused on that a little bit during this eclipse and maybe the day after, and as you're kind of moving out of it, because this is about owning your space. This is about knowing that you are allowed to connect to spirit. You don't need an intermediator, even like me, to tell you, what it is that is right for you and true for you. The Hierophant is a reminder that we embody that ourselves, and we have to choose that for ourselves and choose to show up to that table. And that is always our option. We can choose to or not, but it's an invitation to do just that, to show up to that conversation and that deep being held by something bigger than ourselves. The 2 of Pentacles is a really interesting one that wanted to show up because this is about making decisions based on what we think people need from us, the rest of the world needs from us, the performance we need to put on, the hats we need to put on, the costumes we need to put on, and our true selves, and the simple truth of what we need and desire. And this is a card that's going to be asking us that question. It doesn't give you a nice, clear answer, but it does suggest that if you have certain costumes, responsibilities, or boundaries that really are not reflecting how you're transforming at this time, this is going to be a time where you're really looking at why you feel you need to hold on to those, and if it's okay to put them down and be a little bit more honest with yourself and others. In a kind, loving way, of course. And, this isn't about just arguing about stuff on the internet and being like, I'm being more honest with others because Sarah told me. This is about, those heartfelt conversations and those healthy communication styles that can really help us receive help when we need it, and also make changes where we need it, make honest and meaningful changes where we need it. So that's really what this Scorpio total lunar eclipse is about, is acknowledging how we are changing, emotionally processing it, going toward the part of ourselves we feel we need to relegate or castigate, and finding the beauty and curiosity in it, and just getting curious about ourselves and who we are becoming without feeling like we have to latch onto identities or labels or have it all sorted out right in this moment. Purely being curious enough to witness our whole selves at this time is enough. And that's really all we need to know going into this total lunar eclipse. I want to reiterate, there's really nothing scary here. There's nothing scary here. This is the most natural energy in the world. This is an energy that is full of love. It is wanting the best for us. And I want us to all kind of go into this eclipse with that in mind. I am so excited because I have a new tier on Patreon. We are doing a live call, and I'm so excited. It's going to be a pretty small group, I think. So it's going to be very cozy, and there's only so many spots. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my Patreon. There's also our Magic Seekers Circle where we hang out every single week. So there's a lot of options over there for how you want to be a part of this community. If you would like to have a little extra support and love, I'd love to see you over there. I'd love to see you here. We are going to continue this adventure post eclipse season. I will be talking a lot about life here in Sweden and things that are changing for me in this environment. And you can also find me on my Instagram. There's only one true Sarah Vrba, and on my website and my email. I'll leave all the links in the description box so you know where to find me. I really do hope you have a beautiful Scorpio total lunar eclipse, and that it is just full of support and love and magic. And that is what I imagine this is going to be all about. So have a beautiful one. Talk to you very, very soon, friends.